Hey guys, it's Ellen Brock, novel editor. Today I'm going to talk about similes, why most similes suck, and how you can write good ones. If you don't know what a simile is, it's just a comparison using like or as. For example, light as a feather is a simile. So first I'm going to go over a few reasons that similes don't work, different reasons why they might come across as silly or they might hurt the tone of the scene or be ineffective. And then I'm going to give you some examples, and the examples are from my own writing from when I was about 12, I think. And you guys are going to make fun of me, but I don't like to make fun of other writers or call anybody out on bad similes, so I'd rather just use my own work and embarrass myself for you guys. You're not going to be impressed with my 12-year-old writing skills. So the first reason a simile might not work is because it's comparing something to something that is basically exactly the same. So the point of a simile is to enhance the reader's understanding. So if all you're doing is comparing something to basically the same thing in a slightly different situation, it's not very effective. For example, if you compare jumping with joy to a kid jumping on the bed, there's no enhanced understanding. You're not illustrating anything that isn't already clear from what you said initially. Reason number 2 is that the simile does not suit the tone of the scene. This is a very, very, very common problem. If you're writing a scary scene and then you use a simile that compares something to something that's very lighthearted, like balloons or like fluffy clouds, it's not going to suit the scene, and so it's going to hurt the tension. Reason number 3 is that the simile is more complicated than the original description. Again, the point of a simile is to enhance understanding, to clarify your description. So if your original description is simpler than your simile, the simile is not going to be effective. The simile should synthesize the information, should make your description easier and simpler for the reader to understand. The fourth reason that a simile might not work is that it isn't easy to understand it at first glance. The writer has to think about it or try to interpret what you mean by the simile. It's not creating an instantaneous enhancement of the original description. Reason number 5 is that there are just too many similes. Sometimes writers get into sort of like a simile kick and there will be 4, 5, 6 on the same page. It can tend to come across as a little awkward, and it can also be distancing because when you're constantly telling the reader that this description is like this other thing and this description is like this other thing, you're constantly pulling the reader away from the current scene. So if you do that over and over again, you can create unintentional disconnect. Number 6 is using a simile when there is no need for enhanced comprehension from the reader. In other words, the reader understood what the writer meant the first time, and the simile is just adding words, but it isn't enhancing the understanding because the reader already knew what the writer meant. Number 7, the last reason I'm going to give today, is that the simile is a cliche. If your simile is something the reader has heard 400 times in their life, it's not going to have any emotional impact. For example, earlier in this video, I talked about light as a feather. That is a very cliche simile. So let's get into some examples of what not to do from 12-year-old me. I'm going to be reading the similes off of my phone. I'm sorry if that's distracting, but I did not really want to memorize these appalling similes. So most of these similes are from a story that I wrote about a kid getting kidnapped. So the tone was supposed to be pretty serious. Okay, so this is when the kidnapper is breaking into the car. A minute later, she heard the click of the locks in the door popping out of their holes like prairie dogs. Okay, so this does not work for a few reasons. There's no need for enhanced understanding. We understand locks popping up. We do not need it compared to prairie dog. The other thing is the entire prairie dog comparison is not exactly setting a tense mood for the scene. I would say that this one also falls into the category of not being clear at first glance, because when I first reread this, because I wrote this, I know you're proud, I didn't really even understand initially what I was trying to say, so that's not good. She looked up for the first time and saw a dark figure sitting where she thought her mother had been. Her mouth gaped open like a fish expecting to be fed. So why does this simile not work? It really falls into several categories. There's no need for enhanced understanding. Her mouth gaped open. Okay, we understand what that looks like. We don't need any more explanation of that. Like a fish, I'm sorry. It doesn't have the tension that you would want in this scene. She's about to be She's about to be kidnapped, and the description is like, she looks like a fish. It doesn't work. It's not working. So after she is kidnapped, she's put in the trunk of the car, and then there is this description. She laid down on her back and kicked the roof of the trunk over and over again like a mad dog trying to escape its kennel. Again, we don't really need a comparison in this situation, and also this is an example of comparing something to basically exactly the same thing. She's trapped, she's kicking, the dog is trapped, the dog is trying to kick or bash into the side of the kennel. There isn't enough difference between these situations to give any purpose to this. There's no benefit to this added description. There was a 10-foot wall all the way around the house, topped with barbed wire like the icing on a cake. I was very good at similes that did not suit the tone of the scene. So icing on a cake is a relatively positive connotation. There's good feelings associated with cake and icing, so it does not help the sinister vibe. I would also say this is a situation where a simile really is not adding anything. Barbed wire on the top, we understand what that means. We don't need any additional understanding. So later on that night, she's looking out the window post kidnapping, and the description is, the stars were twinkling and the moon hung like a giant dinner plate. This is an example of a cliche. When you're using a cliche, it doesn't enhance understanding. If anything, the reader probably is just going to tune it out. So I did find a simile from one other story that I wrote. I didn't use that many similes when I was 12, except for in this one kidnapping story. It was just like packed to the gills with similes. So I did find one more, and it was from a monster story in which the monster is described. They look as strange as a dog at the circus, except bald. This way falls into the category of, it's harder to understand than just a straight description. I'm not sure when they look as strange as a dog at the circus, if I'm saying they look literally like a dog at the circus. And I'm not sure what is strange about a dog at the circus. Like dogs, like trick dogs at the circus is not, they don't look strange in my mind. It just doesn't work on any level. It's like, what are you talking about? There's no instantaneous connection to any meaning. So I really hope this video helped you and that you learned something about how to avoid terrible similes. And I hope you got some amusement out of my terrible similes from my childhood. This video has been part of my novel bootcamp series. I will be back with new videos 3 to 4 days per week throughout August. If you want to participate in the workshops that are part of Novel Bootcamp, I'll put a link in the description. If you want to follow me on Twitter because you want more writing advice, or you want to see my beautiful poodle, Toby, you can follow me. I am Ellen M. Brock, and the link is in the description. Happy writing, guys!